Alright class, so this set of notes really isn't too much of a big leap from what we were doing in the last set of notes. So in the last set of notes we were comparing a quantitative variable in 2 groups, and now we're going to compare a quantitative variable in 3 or more groups. So we're going to start this by looking at an example, but before we do that, so in our previous set of notes there was the first big option that we had to choose, and that was whether our samples were independent of each other or if they were paired, or which we would refer to as dependent on each other. So in this set of notes, although we could do both, we are only going to focus on those that are independent of each other. So we're not going to look at all when there are actually dependent or paired samples when there's more than 2 groups. Alright, so for our example that we're going to work with, we're interested in seeing how changing one's diet or exercise has an impact on weight loss. So we had a total of 57 participants that we were randomly assigned equally to one of the following. So there was a group that had no change in diet or exercise at all, another group that increased their exercise for 2 hours a week, and then finally a group that decreased their number of calories by 250 a day. So this thing was implemented over an entire 6-week period, and for each person we recorded their amount of weight loss. So kind of some things to pay attention here to. So the quantitative variable we're measuring is the amount of weight loss. So just for an example, so a 5 would mean that that person lost 5 pounds. Versus if I would have had a negative 5, that person actually would have gained 5 pounds. So I mean, since it's weight loss, we could technically have positive and negative numbers. Here a positive will be a weight loss for somebody. So that's our quantitative variable. Now our categorical variable that we're working with is sort of which program are they part of. And there's 3 different options. So there's the no change group, there's the exercise changing group, and then there's our calorie or diet changing group. So that's why we have this quantitative variable of weight loss with the 3 groups is what we have here. So we're not really going to dive into anything totally new in this video. We're going to save that for in class together. But in this video, we're just going to kind of do some old stuff of just describing the data, but we're also going to talk about comparing them. So first on this plot that you have here, you have 2 plots that we've already seen before. So this is our histograms that we have here, and then these are our box plots. So just looking at them, so what we have here, so this is my diet group, this is my exercise group, and then this is my no change group. Okay, so if I first just look at that, right, I'm probably not too surprised. So first of all, notice that they're actually all on the same scale here, right? So there's my 0 for all of them. Those that did nothing differently, probably not too surprisingly, are on the lower end here. Those that were in the diet group were kind of more in the middle. And then those that were in this exercise change group are more on the right, or at the larger numbers. And I do the same thing over here with my box plots. If you might say, like, here's my 0, and this is more like me moving to the right if I'm comparing things over here. So the higher we are on this plot, the higher the weight loss. So I'll see the same thing here, right? My nothing group is a tendency to be lower, diet's in the middle, and my exercise group seems to be the highest. So right now, if I were to look at this, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do something to try to lose weight. What should I do? These plots make me think like, okay, the exercise change group might be my best option. But again, this isn't a ton of people that we have here. We only have a total of 57 people, so we have 19 in each group that we have. That's not a ton of people. You have this on your page, but didn't fit on all of mine here. So this next plot is a dot plot, is what it's called. What some students like about this one is it's the same idea as your histogram, but it's actually 1 dot represents each individual person. So I can see with each of my 19 people in each group what exactly was their weight loss as well. So what you can kind of see is, we do have that trend, right, that nothing is the smallest, diet sort of in the middle, and the exercise is the highest, right, but there is some overlap going on between all these groups. Right, there are some people in nothing group that lost just as much weight as those in both the exercise group and the diet group. So there is this overlap. And then finally, I also gave you some of our summary statistics that we've seen before, like the mean, the median, the standard deviation, all those different things we have here. So in this video, all we're going to do is describe those 4 characteristics for each of my groups. So let's first look at our no change groups. If I look at this graph, I would probably describe this as being unimodal. And I'm actually going to say that it's pretty symmetric. Remember, how else can I confirm that it's symmetric? If I look at the mean and the median, they are both 0 So sort of confirming that really is symmetric. When I look at the graph as well, I don't really see any outliers on it. And then finally, we'll use the mean and the median to help us finish interpreting everything here. So here, we're going to again start with, we're only looking at those that didn't do anything differently. So I'm going to kind of start with that. I'm going to say when looking at how much weight was lost by those that did nothing differently, or those kept doing things as they had been. Alright, so our data appear to be unimodal and pretty symmetric. And it didn't have any outliers. Right, our mean weight loss was 0 pounds. And half of people I can say is less than 0 pounds or is greater than 0 pounds, but to me it almost makes more sense to say that half of people didn't lose any weight. So that's really kind of implying the less than 0 part. Okay. And then finally, we always interpret that standard deviation. Alright, we put things in context here, so we start at our mean. I'll kind of blur out this 2 so we're not confused on here. So my 0 there goes in the middle. And then I go 1 standard deviation in either direction, and our standard deviation was 2. So we get -2 to +2. So I'll actually continue to write this part in green so you know where it comes from. So then I can say that our typical person here in this group fell between gaining 2 pounds, that's what the negative part would mean, to losing 2 pounds. Alright, so our same thing, the shape, outliers, center of the mean and median, and spread by interpreting the standard deviation. Now we're going to do the same things for the other 2 groups. We're going to do the same thing for the diet group and the same thing for the exercise group. And it might be a smart thing here to go ahead and pause it, because this is again something that's older, so you should already know how to do it, and then you can come back and see if the video matches. So we're going to do the diet group next. So kind of describing its shape, its outliers, using its mean and median and its standard deviation to interpret it, as well as with our exercise group. So you can try to pause it here and see if we get the same answers. Alright, so first just looking at those with the diet group. So I describe my data as being unimodal and pretty symmetric with no outliers. My mean was 2.816 pounds, and half of them lost at least 3 pounds. And then our typical person in this group lost between 1.19 and 4.442 pounds. Now, again, sometimes I think you guys look for a lot more perfection for symmetric than I do possibly. So what I actually put on these plots that I didn't mention before is I have these 2 lines on here. And so one is the mean and one is the median. So the green one is actually where the mean is, and the red one is also where that median is. And so it kind of is a nice helpful visual that if those are pretty close to being on top of each other, it's actually a pretty symmetric graph, or just the further apart that they get, that's going to show you that it's much more skewed that you would have here. So on that note, already looking ahead to this one probably alone, if I just looked at the plot, might look like it's skewed right to me. I'm still kind of one peak overall, so I would feel good with the unimodal part. But from just looking at the plot, I might lean toward being skewed to the right. But if I look at the mean and median here, 6.95 basically and 7, those numbers are really, really close to each other, so I can see that my lines are almost on top of each other here. So even though the plot itself might look a little skewed, it really is actually pretty symmetric here. Mainly because that mean and median. So sometimes the plot can be slightly misleading to us. Sometimes it just matters where those lines happen to fall, and if we're kind of people like they're right on that border of sort of which side they fell on. So if we have people kind of like right here on this border, that might have fallen right over here. So that could actually be kind of why maybe the graph looks the way that it does. So this one I will still be interpreting as being symmetric. And so you can see we interpreted this one as being unimodal and pretty symmetric with no outliers, just like the other two. Mean weight loss and the median weight loss were different. And of course our typical value is also a little bit different. So again, if we're kind of looking at where we're going with this, if I look at my three means that we had, right, we saw sort of what we saw already, that the nothing group lost really not much weight at all. The diet group was better, but the exercise group seemed to lose the most weight. So if I look at my last little, my typical value here, right, -2 to +2, 1.19 to 4.442, and 3.883 to 10.01, there is some overlap going on between my groups as well. So our goal of where we're going with this is, so we see this visual difference, but again, we only sample 19 people in each group. We want to test to see, do these means, are they really significantly different from each other? Does it really make a difference of which group I'm in on how much the average weight loss is? So that's where we'll pick up in class together.